something that people are always really interested in, and it's an area where I myself have leveled criticism at companies in the past for, but that is heat buildup. Now, you might remember when the Galaxy S4 was released, I was very negative on what Samsung delivered there. From a heat point of view, the thermal properties of, well, their design and the CPU-GPU combination they'd used at the clock speeds they'd gone for meant that you had a device that was useless for gaming, in my opinion, for any longer than maybe 10 to 15 minutes at a time. The device became far too hot to operate normally. If you put a case on it, quite a bit better, but of course then you're building some more internal heat which could reduce the life expectancy of your device overall. Now, gaming is obviously something we're very keen on here, and I know so many people are when they buy Android devices. You know, it may very well be we're a kind of split user base in some respects between those people who are only looking at their devices as a productivity tool and those people who are looking at it as an all-round entertainment device, which includes high-quality gaming. Now, when we've been putting this device through its paces, and we've put a lot of games through this device so far in the last 3 or 4 days, we've found a common thing. This device doesn't get overly hot. In fact, I would say this has some of the best thermal properties I've actually seen from a smartphone in the last year. It's very much comparable to the HTC One before it, although actually I found the heat dissipation seems to be better across the back of the case. The hot spot, as it were, is much wider and cooler than you would get from the original HTC One, and considerably, and I really do mean considerably better than the Galaxy S4. The Galaxy S4's primary problem was the GPU-CPU package and the Wi-Fi radio. They appeared to be practically either next to each other or combined within the same chip. Now the problem there was if you were running the Wi-Fi and running 3D games simultaneously and it was really cranking through, then you would get a massive amount of heat build-up very, very quickly, up to the point where, frankly, it was uncomfortable. With the HTC One, we found that the heat build-up is, well, quite excellent, really. And by excellent, I mean it doesn't gain incredible hot spots in one corner. The heat is much more evenly distributed down the casing. Now, a lot of this comes from the fact that we've obviously got this aluminium case. It's acting like a heatsink in its own right, and it may very well be we have a copper layer of some sort or another metal layer in here which is acting as a heat spreader inside the case as well. Again, what this is doing is it's moving the heat from away from the CPU-GPU package and helping to spread it down the case. It does mean you get a sort of hot spot around this area, but at no point was it ever uncomfortable. No point did I get sweaty finger syndrome where I kind of like, put the device down for a bit, let it cool. I was able to game quite happily for 30, 45 minutes, even up to an hour, and no real major problems here with heat build-up. In fact, you know, overall, I would say this is one of the best devices I've seen for gaming so far. It may not have the fastest clock speeds from CPU-GPU package, for instance, that we will be seeing in the Galaxy S5 in a few weeks' time. But ultimately, just because you've clocked something higher is not necessarily a good thing. If the chip's thermal properties mean that at those higher clock speeds it's obviously using a lot more heat, you're generally also using a lot more power, battery power. So there has to be a kind of trade-off here. And the trade-off also has to be about heat and how comfortable a device is to use over time as well. For my mind, HTC have scored a bit of a winner here. At no point does this device become too hot to handle, even over those long gaming sessions, and the distribution of the heat down the casing as well is excellent and hopefully will lead to much longer lifespans from our CPU and GPU. Heat buildup is a killer. It lowers life expectancy of devices. Anything we can do to move that heat away from the source is really beneficial. Ultimately, I think here HTC might have scored an absolute winner, but we'll have to see what the Galaxy S5 delivers. If it delivers a very similar package that we saw on the Galaxy S4, then I may very well be saying the same thing again. Not great for gaming. Gets a bit too warm in those hot spots. HTC, you scored a bit of a winner here as far as I'm concerned.